Alrighty, Lumberjacks, welcome back. And today we're going to be going over the big new update that I've been toting and yelling and screaming about to everybody for the past little bit. So this is going to be a pretty big, pretty awesome update. And it's come from a lot of support from other people as well. So I have a lot of things to go over, and I want to show you guys. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into it here. So the new machines in this update, the biggest thing you're going to notice on it right off the bat is the new tracks. So basically, these are the same tracks from Farming Simulator 2017, but thank you so much to Umbreon, who was able to figure out how to bring them over to the new game, and he did some example stuff to show me exactly what he did to make them work. Without his hard work, there's no way these would be on these machines. So thank you so much to Kyle, Umbreon, dude, you're awesome. I appreciate it. I also spoke to Kenny, the guy who did the updated script for these tracks, and he gave us permission to use them in FS19, and I still have permission from FS17 to use these tracks from FT Modding. So these are a huge new accomplishment for the machines, and honestly, they make them look night and day different. They just look so much better. I was doing some comparison shots to the old 2D looking scroller ones, and I cannot believe how much it makes these things just kind of pop out and be better. So I kind of got a whole bunch of stuff set up to show you guys what's new in this update. And I have this huge list on my other monitor that I'm looking at that I have to go over to show you guys. So like I said, number one, brand new tracks, fully animated to move back and forth. And they just, like I said, they're just gorgeous. The other thing, I'm just going to kind of do this out of order here. So next on the list was the players in the cab now. So I had a huge request for this, and for the longest time I thought it was kind of stupid having a character in the cab because 99% of the time I always worked out of first-person mode. So I was like, well, why do you need to see a person in the cab, right? But that was just me being stubborn me. So Chad, Mithras Catalyst there, was able to kind of coax me into putting these characters in the cab by basically giving me every step and instruction on how to do it properly and quickly. So I finally succumbed to the pressures of Chad, and I said, I'm gonna put people in the machine. So now when you enter a machine, there is now a character of the person sitting in the machine, operating the joysticks and playing around. The characters aren't animated, like their arms don't move around with the joysticks and stuff, but there is a person in the cab, so at least you can tell when there is somebody in the machine versus not. Single player, not so much of a big deal, but if you guys are big into multiplayer, or for instance, I have the logging crew and logging bros happening now, so it is really nice to be able to, jump in a machine and see a character in the cab of the machine operating it. So that's a nice little kind of touch feature there that I think a lot of people will maybe enjoy. Next on the list, back to the machines again. So the biggest, hugest, gigantest improvement to these things is these machines have gained an extreme amount of weight. They've really been pounding back the cookies and cream. They are heavy, heavy, heavy machines. So basically, to give you a little side story of the reasoning why I did this is I was watching videos of machines operating, and I was kind of I always watch them and I compare them to what real life versus the game. I know there's limitations. You can't end up exactly like real life, but after watching these machines operate, I found watching them, they don't really move around a whole lot. Like they don't, if you're carrying a really heavy tree, you can make them tip, you can make them kind of wobble a little bit, but they don't wobble at all like my previous machines did. I was recording some footage with Umbreon for some intro videos, and just watching those machines bounce around, and what was happening was like one track side would lift up, the other track side would lift up, and it bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce, and it looked really cartoony and it looked ridiculous. So I thought to myself, I'm like, I hate it. I can't have this anymore. We got to find a solution. So I spent a long time, many hours playing with weights and the physics and the tires and the friction scale and the never-ending list of things to try to balance it all out. And I think I've come up with what feels like the most secure track system I've ever built. These tracks can literally almost drive over anything, and because of the extreme weights of the machines, you'll notice now you're dominating the trees instead of the trees dominating you with the machine. So before, it felt like any tree you cut down, it would always feel like it had more control over the machine by the weight, as opposed to the machine controlling it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a little example here. Now we got to bring this out to a site, which is good because now I got to show you guys the other good stuff. Oh yeah, well, you know what? Since we're here, we're going to jump ahead on the list a little bit. So all of the machines have new sound effects. A little bit different. Some of it's similar or the same, but most of it's different. So the new tracks, I'll stop talking so you can hear these. It's pretty quiet, but the new tracks have a really squeaky kind of track sound. So as we run over a bunch of your head, so you can hear that nice and clear. But they have a really kind of more realistic feel. And as myself, who's operated in equipment, I can tell you that's a lot more realistic to what they actually sound like when you're driving around. Compared to before, I had a really clunky, kind of heavy, bassy sound, and it wasn't really that great. So this has now been extremely improved. Oh, see if I can hook that up there. For doing that. So that sounds different. I'm not going to go over every sound effect, but there's lots of little changes. A lot of the machines have different sound effects. A lot of the machines have different grab sound effects, different hydraulic sound effects, and just little stuff. Stuff probably a lot of people won't notice, but it does add a nice kind of bonus to it. I'm just gonna go like this, and we'll drop the gate here. There we go. Okay, so what we're gonna do is load this up. So now, the other thing that's changed on these things, oops, and don't leave your, don't turn your machine off while the tracks are rolling. One thing that's changed on these machines is every single machine, except for a very, very small amount of them, is now lockable on these low beds. And these things need to be lockable because they are extremely heavy now. I've made adjustments to the truck. I've made adjustments to the bodies so that you can haul them. But they are lockable by hitting L. It kind of sucks it down into the load a little bit, but that's totally normal. So we're going to go like this. And we're going to go take this out for a little quick bunching excursion. So let's go for a little drive here. I'm not going to go far. We're just going to go over here. Oh, I almost hit that crow. That was close. Lucky bird. There we go. So all the truck's weights have been adjusted. Now, I have been able to haul 2 of these machines, no problem, all the way up to the highest tops of mountains and hills that have roads. So I don't see you guys having a lot of trouble with those. Now, any machine that has a head already attached to it with locking straps, such as the forwarder, the John Deere grapple skidder, and the LeBaire, cannot be locked to that bed because basically what happens is if you try to use the locking heads, it tries to lock to its own body, which is a big, big issue. So there are a couple machines that cannot be locked, so just be aware of that. But everything else, anything with an attachment head like these guys, they're all lockable. So if you're hauling stuff out, it's easy. I'll turn this light on so you guys get a little bit better view. So now, like I said, now with these new weights of these machines, one, they travel a lot more sturdy. You can go over pretty much anything now, no problem. And the other thing you'll find is they settle a lot nicer. Actually, I'm going to go bring it over to this hill here so you guys have an idea. So, for instance, you can go at weird angles, and these machines stay flat and sturdy from in the cab. Well, I mean, if you're at a weird angle like this, you're probably going to get a little wiggle, but before, if you're parked at this angle, this thing would be just teeter-totter like crazy back and forth, and now they'd sit super stable on pretty much all hills, lots of different angles. You guys will notice right away the big difference between them. So what we're going to do here is let's just do a little bit of bunching practice here. So now, when you go in for a grab, you'll notice the trees are almost weightless in comparison to what they used to be, which if you watch lots of bunching videos, a lot of bunchers aren't phased by the wood that much. Unless it's a gargantuanly, extremely heavy tree, there shouldn't be a lot of movement in the body itself. So I think if you put the arm way out there and really shake it, you can probably get a little bit of wiggle. Like I'm talking like micro amounts of wiggle like that. But for the most part, these things stay super stable. Oops, unless you hit them against other trees. But when you're loading, I think you guys will notice the biggest difference. That's what I did anyway. So you'll notice you can carry bigger logs. You can, balance stuff out. It feels really, really good. And these machines are absolutely solid. I can't express enough how this heavy weight has really increased the experience of logging. Like, it feels legit now. And like I said, I really wanted to get rid of the feeling that the trees were dominating you. I want to be in full control of this piece of wood using a giant metal machine. I don't think the game's trees should be throwing you around as much as they do. One other issue that used to happen, I mean, it still happens a little bit, but it's not as bad. I'm going to just do a really ugly cut on one of these trees. Like, I'm going to do it right up here. There we go. And we're just going to leave that over there. God, bunching feels so smooth now. Okay, so one thing that happens, and I mean, it still happens a bit. So when you used to push on a tree with your other machine, or with the other, like the lighter machines, what would happen was you would jump back. Like, if you went to slam this tree, you'd go flying backwards. And I'm sure a lot of you experienced that effect where it was like you'd tap it and your whole machine would literally jump back, like out of the air almost, like super far. So now what's happening with so much extreme weight on these machines, when you push on these trees now, your tracks actually engage and it rolls back like that. So, I mean, I bet you if I slam it really hard, we can probably make it jump a little, but not really, like nowhere in comparison to what we used to do. So what I did is I went around on YouTube and I was watching some of other people using the equipment, like some other videos of other YouTubers using the FDR machines. And what was happening is I saw lots of guys going in for a grab, so they go grab, but it would make them jump. Like, you'd go boom and you'd go flying back in the air, and I was like, oh my god, that looks horrible. Like, what's going on there? So now, with these machines being so heavy, you don't really get that jump effect. So you can really slam it in there, and you don't have to worry about the machine flying back. You may have it like crawl back a little bit, but stability-wise, it's a huge increase. And like I said, I feel like I can really dominate these trees through the bush, cutting them down like I'm doing right now. And I can be a lot more haphazard about it. I don't have to, like before you had to be really like sneak in there, let it do its cut, and then carefully grab it and drop it. But if you watch real bunching, a lot of guys are a lot more like, oh, okay, here's the tree. Slam it, grab it, throw it. Like, there's a lot of abuse on the tree, and the machine just takes it without a problem, right? So, anyway, I could beat that subject to death, but I just wanted to give you guys a really good example of the weights. So all of the machines, every machine has been increased extremely in the weight department, and it feels amazingly well to be able to load, and it feels great. So you guys will have a good time with that. But anyway, I got more things to talk about, so I got to stop ranting on about stuff here. So, oops, can't see that yet. That was a teaser right there. Okay, so next up, let's go right to the good stuff. Right to the good stuff. So, we'll get to you. Not yet. Not you yet. And not you yet. We're going to go to this guy. So right now we have the 822, and magically, what's this? It's a processor head on it. Now, how did we get a processor head on it? Did I make a whole new machine? No, because now we have the ability to use detachable processor heads. So I'm going to go up here where it's flat because I don't want to chase my processor head down the hill if it rolls away. So Q detaches the processor head now. So now processor heads are 100% detachable, and you can use them on any of the attachment machines. This is something I have wanted for so long to do, because it drives me nuts that I have to make a whole new machine, or like a copy of a machine, just to attach a processor head onto it. So now, every single attachment machine has the ability to attach a processor head and use it accordingly, which is sweet. Now, there are some sacrifices to this, and I'm pretty sure I've explained that to you guys before in previous emails or updates. But so one, you'll notice there is no screen, so you can't see your cut length, you can't see your diameter. The only place you'll be able to see that is in that little help menu. Now, I have it open on my other monitor all the time because it's just there and it doesn't hurt anything. That's how you can set your length to know exactly how long your logs are. Like right now it says cut length is 5 meters. So I know this thing's going to cut to 5. which is not a problem for me because usually when I set a cut length, I don't change it for a long time. And if I do, it's no big deal for me to look over and set a new cut length. The biggest thing that'll be weird for a lot of people is that a lot of people use that number popping up on their screen as their cut. So, like for instance, I can't really see when it's time to cut. Like I can tell right now I'm close enough I could cut it. But if you're looking into the bush and you can't really see what's going on, it's hard to tell because it doesn't tell you when to cut. So there's a couple different techniques you can have. One, you can be like real life where you go in, bring it in, close your claw on the tree and do a little pull. If you're on the tree, you know you can cut it, right? If that makes sense. There you go. Then you know it's definitely cut worthy. The other technique would be just getting used to the fact that you can, move the head close to the tree and cut it. Or if you work in third person, it shouldn't be a problem. One other sacrifice for the time being, and I don't know if I'll be able to fix this or not, is there is no manual cut anymore. The manual cut script does not work with these. So for instance, now it just auto cuts on its own with that beautiful new sound effect for cutting as well, which I think a lot of people like that. I like it. So yeah, go in, do your cut, grab your tree. But like I said, it is automatic cut, not manual. Now, I would love to be able to fix that, and then maybe if there's somebody who's more qualified than me at Lewis scripting, because I'm not good at Lewis scripting, maybe they could find a solution for fixing that, but I have not found a solution for fixing that yet. So yeah, but I mean, it's an amazing step for being able to process, and with the new machine weights, again, you can just dominate these trees. It's pretty awesome. So we're gonna go here. Oh, we'll put the ugly piece in there. It don't really matter. But yeah, with the new tracks, new sound effects, new heads, new everything, it's yeah, I don't know. It feels like a whole new world for me anyway. I think you guys will have a really good time. Just being able to put the processor head on whatever you want was always a really important one for me because I had so many people requesting, can you build this? Can you put the processor head on the Medill? Can you put this on the Medill next? Can you do this on the Tiger Cat? Can you know? That's why I really went the route of wanting to make everything an attachment because I was like, oh man, I just want everybody to be able to use whatever they want on whatever machine they want without having to request a whole new machine for doing that, right? Oops. Helps if you turn on the head. There you go. But yeah, I mean, it feels good. And like I said, I always use the word dominate the trees. That's my go-to phrase of this new update. But it really does feel like you are in control of the wood now compared to before. So that's, I don't know, it's a big step for us in this logging dealio because it definitely didn't feel that way before. For instance, like turning this tree, whipping it back and forth, it just, you know, your head is more weight than the tree, so it feels like you have a lot more control. I'm planning on doing some dangle heads and stuff like that as well, so we'll see how that goes. It could be super fun. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next awesome, sweet thing. Since we're on the subject of detachable heads, God, that looks good on that machine. I really like that. Since we're on the topic of detachable heads, the forwarder and the self-loader, I don't need to show you guys the self-loader. You guys know what that looks like. The forwarder also now has a detachable head on it, which just kind of did a little spin there. So these are detachable heads, just like the processor forwarder, the other attachment machines. So you can hook these guys on. Now, these guys actually close remarkably well. It's a new type of grapple. It's different since the last grapple that was on both these machines. This one actually has the ability to really settle the logs quite nicely in the grapple with minimal glitching, I would say. And it also has locking straps. So with the forwarder, you have locking straps on the bed down below. So if you hit L, if you hit L, it'll lock it. Oops, my head's close to the thing. So it locks to the trailer. Now, if you hit G, which changes your configuration from your trailer to your implement, which is the grapple, then you hit L. Now it's got a locking strap on the arm. So, I mean, it's up to you guys how you want to use that system. In my opinion, unless you're on really steep hills, you probably don't need to be using the bed like for locking loads. You probably don't need this unless you're on a steep hill. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to have this on the grapple for grabs too. So I don't know. It's going to be personal preference on what you guys want to do. But I enjoy using the locking straps because this game's got some glitchy little trees going on. And when I grab something, I want to make sure it's grabbed. So let's grab these ones here too. I'm parked on kind of a funky angle, so my machine's got a little bit of tip going. This machine's also been increased in weight. I didn't want to make it kind of like the other machines, how they don't really move very much at all. And then hit G and L to lock this again. I wanted this guy to have a bit more tip because I've watched real forwarders lift logs, and they do have a little bit of a tip in the back. Obviously, I'm parked at a wacky angle, so this is kind of tricky. But so this one does have like a bit of wiggle in the back end. And I mean, if you really hammer it around, it'd probably kind of go a little bit crazy there. But yeah, you can kind of park it at weird angles and get some new stuff. But it still can trek everywhere in the world. I've never had any problems with it hanging up or anything like that, which is fantastic. So yeah, that exact same grapple, which is in the menu there, you can put that on the self-loader or this one. And there'll be more versions of these grapples coming out for these machines. Maybe processors, grapple saws, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. We'll make some cool stuff. The skidder has been improved as well. I'm pretty sure with the new weights, I have fixed the issue of the floating moon thing. Of course, now that I've said it out loud, it's probably not going to be fixed, but it feels like it's better. It doesn't seem to be doing it anymore. And now with the new weights of the skidders, you can haul a lot more wood. Oops, I guess it helps if you actually lock it properly. There you go. Yeah, you can haul a lot more wood. You can, drive it around. There isn't a huge change on this other than the weights, but you guys will notice it's a lot easier to drive it around and kind of have a good time with it. And again, to use the term dominates the wood, it's way heavier than most wood, so you can pretty much take this thing wherever you want. And it drives like a tank, so we'll just park it right here and call her good on that one. But yeah, it's that one's improved, and I'm pretty sure now with the new weights, there was something going on that caused the moonwalk issue because it was something to do with this grapple being too heavy to the rest of the machine, and it would start to do like a teeter-totter. I'm pretty sure now that the machine's heavier than all of it combined, it shouldn't do that. I'm going to say shouldn't because I haven't had it happen, but you never know. Might still happen. Okay, what's next on our list? All new machine icons. Oh, yeah, so we'll take a look at these. So I started doing machine icon. These ones are pretty much the same, but the machines themselves now have this side shot of the machines, which actually looks a lot better in the store than it did before. So you got lots of different options of things to play with there. That's not a huge improvement, but something different. All machines, cameras increased zoom in, zoom out. So on a lot of machines, for some reason, you couldn't zoom in really close. It would stop you like here, and that's as close, farthest you could zoom in. But now you can get right in nice and close if you want to, look at your operator, look at your cab, look at whatever, or for pictures. And now every machine lets you zoom out super far if you want to get like kind of a bird's eye view. I don't know why you'd really want to zoom out that far unless you're doing like a time lapse or something. But you know what, man? The option's there if you want it. So that's good. Increased weights and suspensions. We went over that already. Dominate the trees. Everything's lockable on the low bed except for a couple different machines there. Raise the support legs. Yeah, that's what we did. So I'll show you. Let's buy a trailer. These trailers' weights have all been adjusted too for the machines and for everything, so they're a little bit heavier than they were before. One complaint I got from a lot of people was that these trailers did not sit high enough for when you detach them with the truck and trailer, or with the truck tractor there. So what would happen is you'd try to back up on some things like the low bed or this guy, and you would hit the top of the frame and wouldn't be able to hook it up. So I increased the distance on how far these lift up when you spawn them or detach them. So now you should be able to, even on kind of crappy terrain, you should be able to get the tractor under there, no problem, to hook up that fifth wheel. So that was corrected, and that's all good to go. What else we got here? I fixed the trailers a little bit. The trailers now have less slide because a lot of people were saying when you're driving down the road, the trailers would kind of whip around a little too much, like it was like you're on ice. So they still whip around a little bit due to how much weight is on them at times, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. So you should have a little bit more stable tracking with your trailer following you. So that's a nice one. The mill, placeable mill. So, the placeable sawmill has been updated with two different things. One, I was missing a texture on these guys, so they looked really weird and bland and pale. Now they have a little bit more of a shininess to them, so they can grind stuff up. Looks a lot nicer. Not a big deal. The biggest deal I've done is I've added these, I call them slider pipes, load pipes, whatever you want to call them. Basically, you can... when we were playing in like Logging Crew or Logging Bros, what we found is when we take huge loads with this guy off of the back end of a truck, you'd go drop it, but because of they would stack up so high as they would roll off of each other and then roll off the side and bounce onto the ground. So basically, I just put these little pipes in. One side's a little bit higher than this side, and I did that for a reason. But basically, these stop those logs from rolling out onto the ground. They kind of catch up in a little bit of a mitt, and then they just feed through to the mill. I made this side slightly lower because I know there was a few people that were using things like wheel loaders to load directly onto this ramp. So this side's a little bit higher because, you know, if you're using a LeBaron or anything with a high lift, it doesn't really matter how high they are. But if you're unloading with something like the Laterno, for instance, when that comes out, or you're unloading with like a wheel loader, it's nice to have these a little bit lower so that you can clear the stakes when you're dropping the logs and just kind of do like a little dump onto the ramp. So that was kind of that improvement for that. The power clam, we'll buy one of those real quick. Don't really need to go over... Oops, not that one. This one. Oh, one other thing I'm going to throw out there really quickly is when you're in the store and you click on the processor heads, they do this weird kind of glitchy into the ground thing. They only do that in the store, and the store is just a weird place. But you can just buy them anyway, and when they do get purchased, they show up really nicely on the ground like they're supposed to. So, I don't know. The store is just glitchy, so whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, point being, they all spawn properly. So if you see it glitching in the store, just ignore that. The power clam has been slightly, very ever so slightly reduced in size. I had a few people complaining, saying the last version was like way too big. It was ridiculously overdone. So I agreed it was a little bit too far, and a lot of people had issues loading with it because they said the tusks were way too long or the claws were way too long downward. So when they went to like load, it was hitting on things. So I took it down to like, you know, from 1 to 0.75. So I took a little bit off, but it still grabs the piles like ridiculously well. And you still have your locking straps and all that good stuff on there. So that was a little bit of a change. The Yarder Pro, so the big nasty Yarder Pro, where are you, my friend? So this guy got a boom upgrade. So this thing now has a much longer boom. It used to be about half the size of what it is now. Now with the new machine weights, being this guy a heavy monster, you can haul wood a lot more, like a lot longer distances at a lot more weight. But I wanted the ability to basically control the length of your grabs, because a lot of people said it didn't stick out far enough for when you were bringing the wood into the landing. So a lot of the times they would bring the wood up, but it would almost be hitting the cab to unload it. So now that sucker's got almost double the length of what it had before, and you should be able to do some pretty cool yarding and stuff with it. I did test it a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's still pretty much the same yarder. The biggest problem I had before was I had to put a short piece on it because the weight of the machine, the further you push the top of the boom out, the more tippy the machine becomes, right? Because it's a leverage point for the physics. So by increasing the weight of the machine to this new ridiculous weight that all of them have, that point can now be raised without losing a whole bunch of traction on the ground. So I think you guys will have fun with that. It's pretty cool. Next up is the clam bunk. We did some changes to the old clammer here. If I can find it. Where are you, Mr. Clam Bunk? So, few changes. Number one, you now have a much larger grapple. I had a lot of emails from people, particularly from Georgia, who actually operate or have seen these operate, who said, man, the claws are way too small. In real life, they're way bigger. At first, I was like, are they really that much bigger? So I went and I watched a whole bunch of swamp logging videos. I watched a whole bunch of tiger cat videos, and Lord knows, it is definitely a much bigger claw than the one we had previously. So now this guy has a very large claw for loading up trees in it. I think that'll make a big difference. The other thing is I lowered this point down a little more because people said it was kind of rough. They were loading stuff up and it was super high, and then it would glitch forward. So I did a little bit of playing with the physics. I did a little bit of playing with the distances, and it seems to be operating a lot better. But once I send it out to you guys, I can kind of get a little bit more feedback and see if you guys like what's going on with it. And then if you guys don't like what's going on with it, we can look at improving it further. But give that one a shot, and you guys let me know what you think, because that'll be good feedback for me. I also fixed on this machine and on the John Deere skidder, the mud was missing off the tires because I accidentally zeroed it when I wasn't supposed to. And the last version, you drive through the mud and nothing would happen on the tires. That is now back, so your tires will get all nasty and muddy again when you drive through plowed areas or dirty areas. What else? We changed the name of this guy. So this thing used to be called the arm attach grinder. It is now called the utility grinder because it's more of a utilizing thing. You're putting it on an arm. You can use it a little bit different. The other one's called the forestry grinder, which can be attached to the base of the machines. But yeah, this one's now called the utility grinder, and I also fixed the node so that it cuts a little bit closer to it. What was happening was it would be about a foot off of the grinder and cutting kind of weird and catching things it wasn't supposed to. So hopefully that's a bit of an improvement. I did the best I could with what I had. I have one more thing to show you guys, and then we're free to party. So let's go find it. Bulldozer. So, another random, and this was totally accidental, something that happened with the new weights. Now that these machines weigh these extreme amounts, this blade on this attacher, now, I'm just going to make sure we got our plow on here. Yeah, we do. So what would happen before, I'm just going to turn that off for a second, is if you had the blade pressed into the ground, you would drive forward with the machine and it would stop. It would get hung up on the ground, which was super annoying because when you're plowing, it's like, now you got to like work the arm to like raise and try to adjust it as you go up the hill so you don't get stuck. Now with the extreme weights of these things, it doesn't do that. It kind of dominates the blade now. So you can see the blade kind of bending almost. Like I'll push it right down into the ground as far as I can. So even with it pressed all the way down to the ground, it'll lift the machine up a bit, but it still rides that blade. It'll slide around if you have it pushed all the way down. But now you can have it sitting at like I'd put it about there. And you can drive over pretty much any terrain you want, and it'll plow, and it doesn't get hung up because the weight of the machine dominates the physics behind the actual attachment point. So like for instance, what I'm gonna try to show you guys this up close. So let's go down this hill a little bit. Dig through the garbage here. Oh, it's just so much better plowing too. It just feels like you're really rocking it. It's almost like real life. It's kind of weird. So watch, as I go up this hill, you can kind of see the blade almost... Oh, I wish I could see a better angle. Here we go. So look at this little, like follow the blade back. I'm pointing with my finger, but that doesn't help you guys. Look at this little joint where this thing's connected. So basically where it's raising and lowering. Now, as I go up this hill, we're not going to hit that stump. Stumps still kick the butts of machines, so don't hit those. You can see it, like, bending up and down, which is fantastic because that's basically creating its own suspension system when you're pushing with the blade. So now you don't have to worry about the blade getting hung up on anything because the weight of the machine and the torque from the tracks is actually so extremely high that the blade's physics... like the friction doesn't catch on the ground. It's so much weight, it just pushes through it, which is so cool. And I'm so happy that worked because now I'm going to be plowing roads like a monster wherever I go. And like I said, granted, you can push the claw or the blade down as far as you want. I think that's as far as it goes. So it does lift you up a bit. Now, if you are pushing like this, you're not going to have as much lateral control. You're going to slide back and forth, which is just like real life because I've done this before and it looks hilarious. So make sure your blade's at least a slightly even point. I would say lower it till it starts to kind of tap the ground a little bit. So like right about there. So you can stop seeing it lower, and then you can just drive around and give her. But it's sure fun to plow now because it feels legit. And like I said, that thing now bounces back and forth because it's now basically has its own suspension system. It's pretty cool. I'm very proud of it. But yeah, that was just kind of a random accidental thing that happened. Oh, look at all that mud. Beautiful. Anyway, so that's pretty much all I have to show you guys. I know it's been a long video of me just kind of going on about it, but if you guys have any comments about anything that's not working or something that's bizarre that you've found, please do let me know in the comments or send me an email, come to the Discord, whatever, because this has only been kind of beta tested by myself. And I do want to know if there's anything not working. So I hope you guys enjoy this update because it's going to be awesome. If you guys like the video, leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're in the bush, don't forget to hug a tree. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.